I think the poet or the filmmaker or the musician, the poet must not avert his eyes. You must not avert your eyes. This is what is coming at us.
Podcast that has the gall to tell you what you should be watching. The fuck are we? Don't we know the pressure you're under? Unbelievable. I'm Paul Salt.
I'm Good Film Boy.
And this week, 1 year on from the last time we attempted to do such a thing, we are going to recommend some more movies that we think you might have missed. Because of your busy schedule.
Yeah, I've got a job. Oh, I support a family.
I have loved ones to see.
Oh,
whoa! Look at this guy. Look at this not going to the cinema 3 times a week guy. Asshole.
Save us.
Last year we recommended an obtuse Canadian nightmare, an epic Serbian romantic comedy, and the complete works of 2 perverted Englishmen, one of whom is now working on a film titled Colin, You Anus. So, what have we got for you to store for you this time?
Oh boy, no one can wait.
Peter Greenaway's Colin, You Anus.
Many would say it's his swan song.
Others say it's what we were all waiting for. Before we start, how are our good listeners to be expected to keep up with the hustle and bustle and fussle and fissle of modern movie making? The constant slew of content that's constantly flying at their face and balls. It's all too much, isn't it?
Well, this is kind of what's been happening to me with music recently, and I always said that it never would.
You did always say that.
Yeah, I really thought that, you know, I'd be able to keep on top of things because, you know, I was pretty sure I was going to be a student forever, and
yeah, it looked likely.
Yeah, I mean, student, unemployed. Many would say, what's the difference?
Just subsuming on toast and the residue of toast.
Apparently, you don't get quite as big a stipend from the government for being unemployed, but fingers crossed. 2020, 22, who knows? But
when Jeremy Corbyn leaves Britain dejectedly and becomes Prime Minister of Australia on a platform of kangaroo racism.
Kangaroo acceptance.
Those hopping bastards have had enough of us.
Kangaroo punches and koala chlamydia. Yeah. Not enough, he says.
Koala chlamydia.
Oh, that's good. You came up with that off the cuff.
No, I prepared it last week. What the fuck was I doing? I reckon.
Look, we'd had this conversation already a year ago now. Anyway, look, so it did happen with music, and so I can understand how it would happen with film unless it's kind of your unpaid job. It is unpaid, but it is a job. It is a job.
Yeah,
to
definitely.
Talk about movies on a weekly
calling,
basis.
I think.
Yeah, a sort of mecca type, you know, end goal. Justifies the means.
Where's he going? The swamp needs me.
I wish you wouldn't walk into the hedge like that. I think the best way to deal with it is to not worry about it too much.
Yes. Because,
I mean, even for you, and I think the frequency with which we both of us watch movies, they're vastly different. The chasmic difference in our movie watching rates.
Sure.
How do I get over that myself? I don't really. Because first I have to get over the torrents of abuse that you send to me on a daily basis for not being able to discuss the latest orthodoxy Russian masterpiece.
It is
from the future. Yeah, well, I can understand. I can understand exactly how. I mean, really, isn't the lesson just to appreciate the nuggets that you come across?
Really, aren't we all film? Aren't we all the films here? If you think about it.
I mean, I know one thing's for sure. I know film wins.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So, who wins here? Cinema.
No.
So they said my last divorce hearing. No, I mean, yeah, I'll never see all of the films that I want to see or feel like I should see, or you know, just generally should, according to the gods. I have an Ingmar Bergman box set back at the ranch, and it has about 32 films in it, which is half of his total output. So there's probably even some gems hidden away in the ones that aren't in this fucking box set.
Daunting in itself.
Yes. And I haven't cracked it open yet. I've had it since February. And it's on the shelf next to the box set of the original Planet of the Apes movies, the original 5 that I haven't opened either. And the Howell and Pressburger. It was when Powell and Pressburger turned into werewolves. And they made 2 films. I haven't watched either of them either.
Gosh.
Quickly tries to figure a werewolf pun on a Powell and Pressburger film. It's not coming. It's just, you can't force it, you know? Sometimes you get koala chlamydia. Other times
you're stuck with Howell and Pressburger.
That's the way life works.
With that. No, but I mean, I sympathise, man, really, because here Nell's sister lent us a copy of 2017's Ghost in the Shell, and I haven't seen that yet. So
I wouldn't be too apoplectic.
No. What I'm saying is, your 32 Ingmar Bergman films is the same thing.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
What about aircraft?
I'm the victim here. After all, aren't I the victim here?
At the end of the day. So we're gonna stand here, and we're going to
we are standing.
We're gonna stand here, and we're also not gonna.
Paul insists on it. My knees hurt, Paul.
No,
cinema insists.
You show the Queen's respect, as both of our nations must apparently do, for reasons unbeknownst to us.
Call that a bow?
You call that an erection? You don't know how to queen. You're not a proper Englishman. My father's rod was turgid and immovable. All the way through the
turgid
national
and immovable. Like a fucking mud-bottom river.
We're going to talk about some films that we've really enjoyed that we think public will also enjoy.
Public.
And I guess the thing is, we're not doing this just sort of add more shit to the pile that, you know, already has Jessica Jones Season 2 on it, all of Stranger Things, and that book that you wrote but didn't read. Just all the shit. You haven't seen Infinity War yet. It's too much. We know that.
Yeah.
You know, new Kanye album. It's an exciting time for everyone.
There's a lot going on.
There's so much going on. And
all taps are on.
What we're just doing is, we're just floating some ideas in the hopes that you might hear it and think, actually, that's quite good. And then you'll go away with your Michael Caine self, and you'll watch it, and you'll really enjoy it. And then you'll tell us, and that'll validate the years we've spent wasting fucking time staring at a little glowing screen with tiny people on it.
Yeah, it's all well and good saying that that's what we're doing, but when we are just coming into someone's house at night, kicking over their pile of to-watch DVDs.
I'm leaving a pristine copy of The Forbidden Room.
Yep. Sellotaping it to their face so that when they wake up, it's the only thing they can see.
So, let's get on with it.
My first recommendation that I wholeheartedly recommend to everyone, unlike the other recommendations, is Noah Baumbach's 2005 The Squid and the Whale.
Your mom and I, we're going to separate. I've got you Tuesday, Wednesday, and every other Thursday.
What about the cat? The cat?
We didn't discuss the cat.
Starring Jeff Daniels, Laura Linney, Jesse Eisenberg, and some other people. I think William Baldwin's in there. Oh, and Anna Paquin from the X-Men. Anyway, it's in my opinion Noah Baumbach's best and first, maybe first,
in my
maybe
opinion.
Second.
It's his
first film.
It's the firstest film he ever made.
It's definitely the Noah Baumbachiest.
Yeah,
I think. Or the least. Either way, it depends how you feel about Noah Baumbach.
Exactly.
Yeah. With the exception of the Meyerowitz stories, the ones that I've seen, haven't been an enormous fan. But
I think we both went to see American Mistress, and we were very surprised at how much none of us liked it.
Yeah. None of us implies more than both of us.
Well, we had a third.
We felt the dislike of the world.
We had a Mr. X with us, and he didn't like it either.
Yes. No.
And yeah, I had
Je déteste, he said. He's from Belgium.
He is from Belgium. Oh god, people are going to be able to work out the identity of Mr. X, especially since that's the first letter of his name as well. It's not as anonymous as it seems, guys. Mr. X Xavier. X dot.
You're
fine.
telling me there's only one Xavier in Belgium?
It's loaded with the fuckers.
Too many. It's why we're friends with this one. They kicked him out.
It's like, sorry, we've done the maths. with one too many. We're going to need you to go to England with all the Pauls. No!
I kick him off on a raft. Fuck! Mad, he says.
Oh, God, what happens now? We're going to go see American Mistress. Is that what it's called? Or is it Miss America? Or something? Mistress America?
Mistress America.
That's
Mistress America, starring Greta Gerwig.
Yes.
New holder of Best Director ever.
Yeah.
Which is what made Lady Bird such a wonderful surprise, is because I've thoroughly disliked everything that Greta Gerwig's been in until that moment. It turns out she's a fucking genius.
Yeah, you hadn't seen Frances Ha. And I have also seen While We're Young, which is also very good. So I think actually American Mistress for me was just the exception.
Okay.
I
tried to watch Greenberg.
Oh, I haven't seen Greenberg.
I tried to watch Greenberg. It was thoroughly irritating.
Lovelet.
Yeah. Speaking of Lovelets, The Squid and the Whale. He's been a long-time collaborator or friend of Wes Anderson, and you can kind of see similarities in this.
In that one, yeah.
It's about these two young boys who are dealing with their parents' divorce in Brooklyn in the 1980s, and it's wonderful for so many reasons. Jeff Daniels plays the dad. He's a one-time author who's sort of losing his sway amongst his fans, and he's not quite reconciled with his dwindling fame. He's a professor of English lit, and he's taking praise where he can get it from his students and things like that. And his wife, played by Laura Linney, has just had a book published, or is having a book published.
I thought that was heading towards enough of his shit. Just no more.
Well,
what you're doing.
Yeah, well, the writing process and her capacity for Jeff Daniels is shit. They're both, it's equal positive correlation.
Pretty low.
Yeah, exactly. They're positive correlation, and around the time she gets this book published, Jeff Daniels just becomes bitter and snide, and they divorce. And it's about these two people, Jeff Daniels, this really immature, just sort of selfish but terribly insecure guy, and the mum who's sort of having an okay time with it, just clashing, and the effect that it has on the kids. Jesse Eisenberg plays this really. He seems really conceited and arrogant, but really he idolizes his dad. Yes.
Never. He can't play that.
I know, weird, but he's like Michael Cera. Just what a range. But again, this is Jesse Eisenberg is Jesse Eisenbergist. He idolizes his dad and to a fault. Which when your dad is a bit of a bore, it's always going to be a fault, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's how this is affecting how he deals with his relationships, romantic and other, and his coming of age, and then his younger brother, played by Owen Klein, being at a younger, more formative age, takes it really, really badly, and sort of just goes reeling off in crazy directions. There's not much more to it plot-wise, except for the sort of myriad events that happen in a rocky, heart-rending breakup. It's really, really real. I'd say the characters are very much larger than life, but there's truth in all of them. There's such a clash of personalities in this. It's really funny. It's so funny just watching Jeff Daniels bluster and blag his way through life as this guy of fading importance. It's sad. It manages to properly, do a film about divorce.
Yeah, it's a really good film. It's one I didn't anticipate necessarily liking when you lent it to me back in the day, because I wasn't.
You think Indie Quirkfest?
Yeah, I wasn't at that stage into indie as I am now. Indie comedy. But yeah, I was really surprised by how accessible the characters were and how interesting the sort of dilemma that they're experiencing is.
Yeah, absolutely.
All that work I did at the end of our marriage, making dinners, cleaning up, being more attentive, it never was going to make a difference.
You never made a dinner.
I made burgers the time you had pneumonia.
Okay, well, my first one is Christine.
You okay?
Do I not seem okay? Maybe you can get us some footage of the chickens having sex so people can see how the eggs are really made. That's a joke.
What is this? What are you doing?
I've just been thinking a lot about your idea of sensationalizing the news. I'm agreeing with you.
Not the one, not the 80s movie about a killer car. written by Stephen King. This is 2016's Christine, and it is the story of Christine Chubbuck. And if you don't know the sensationally tragic story of Christine Chubbuck, I would urge you not to Google it before watching this film, because the actual story is, I don't know, often treated as a very morose piece of trivia. You know, you'll find it on the list of famous somethings on Wikipedia, and it can be boiled down to a sort of bite-sized, shocking thing that Christine did. But watch the film instead, because although it takes some liberties with her actual life story, it provides a much more considered impression of her life and what she went to and what led her to do the terrible thing she did. So, it's the story of Christine, played by Rebecca Hall, and she is a news reporter in the 1970s, working for a very small news station. A big-time news producer is coming to find out if one of the reporters should be sort of on national news. That's putting a lot of pressure on Christine, and her higher-ups within the news station are telling everyone that they need to find more sensational stories, because this is back in the days when, you know, the person who reads the news actually would go out and research stuff, and that might still be the case, I don't know. Geraldo. It's the Geraldo days. And
I see.
Christine wants to be the next Geraldo. She starts taking her manager's message on board, the idea of sensationalism. She buys a police scanner, she starts listening to it, and the cops sort of talking somewhat hideously between themselves about their job. Christine is experiencing depression, and the people around her will put it onto sort of anything that they can. They'll say, oh, you just need a man. Or they'll say, you just need to try harder at work. Or you need to take more time off from work, or you just need to eat some ice cream now and then, or come with me to my special therapy group and we'll play the yes but game, where we'll fix all your problems. And nobody's listening to her. Nobody's just fucking finding out what it is she's so stressed about and just giving her space. And so she's feeling pulled in every direction, and the film is, you know, building and building to the event we eventually get to. So, in spite of all of this, being a film about depression and about the sensationalizing, why not? It starts here, folk. Your new favourite, most awkward word ever. Sensationalizing. There you go.
I thought you were going to say podcast.
Oh, it got good when they introduced sensationalizing as a recurring phrase. That'll be our catchphrase that all our live shows start with.
Really play to their strengths.
It's about the sensationalizing of the news.
Oh yeah, okay.
So it has the potential to be very, you know, downbeat, but it's really energetic in the way it moves, and it's really funny in places, very darkly funny in terms of how awkward Christine's interactions tend to be with people. Some of which, you know, are true to life, because you have like some very near the end of things. There was some very awkward interviews that she had with people, where suddenly it's like a very shy and introverted person trying to be a sort of talk show host, and it leads to some really uncomfortable moments, but in a sort of darkly comedic way. But at the heart of everything, the thing that drives the whole thing, Rebecca Hall as Christine. I really like Rebecca Hall, and I think this is the best performance she ever gave. She disappears into the role. The voice, the way she carries herself, and the film is really good.
It sounded to me like a really claustrophobic, intense character study, so I'm surprised to know that it's comedic as well. But is it sort of Schadenfreude or
it's definitely
gallows humour?
It is in that respect. It is a sort of dark character study, and it can be fairly intense in terms of just being inside of her head and her life, and just wishing she could fucking get away from all the things that are sort of really negatively influencing her. But of course, part of depression is that you don't necessarily recognize the triggers that you're, you know, going back to over and over again.
Of course, yeah.
But yes, it does have that sort of comedy just to sort of alleviate things. And to because that's just life, I guess. It's that, you know, and the number of comedians who sort of experience depression is that the thing people like about Christine is that she'll say the thing. I mean, she's a very charismatic character as well, and she'll say the thing that sort of nobody else would say, and she has this great sense of integrity that she doesn't want to be reporting on sort of sensationalist stuff and just listening to this police scanner. But she's also
like Bruce Almighty.
Like Bruce Almighty, but she doesn't have divine powers bestowed by Morgan Freeman. Why not? Huh?
Me?
Answer that, Morgan Freeman.
Why don't you try to adopt a baby?
Yes, but I've always wanted to have a baby, and I've always wanted to have a husband, and I've always wanted to have a job where I can do the work that I want to do.
Why don't you manage your expectations? Maybe, adjust your thinking.
I don't understand the question.
Ah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Check out Christine. Hardcore Henry from 2015.
Okay, well, the good news is that you're going to live a while. The bad news is there's an army standing between you and your wife. So let's go get her.
Fuck yeah.
Yes. This was directed by Ilya Naishuller, I think.
Yes.
And this is a film, as I'm sure some of you already know, that is shot solely from the first-person perspective. It's about a guy called Henry who's resurrected from death with no memory, and he's got to save his wife from a telekinetic warlord with a plan to bioengineer soldiers. The plot is incidental,
yes.
I think, to the main thrust of the film, which is first-person, almost indestructible superheroes running around with a gun in front of him 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Just getting into more outlandish and explosive scrapes, followed by Sharlto Copley at every turn, who carries the film isn't the right thing to say, because the film was really exciting and visceral and full-throttled as well, but Sharlto Copley is just fucking perfect in it.
I think he's what makes it more than just a sort of gimmick and a great action movie. He puts some heart into it.
Agreed. He's got all these different personalities that he's switching between over and over and over again, and it ups it in terms of surrealism, ups it in terms of comedy, and I mean, Sharlto Copley is just a joy at any point. There isn't much more to say about it. I think it's Neville Dean Taylor's wet dream, and the metal soundtrack is hilarious. The violence is ridiculous. Just when you think that it can't go any more extreme, it does, and it really doesn't disappoint with the ending.
Yeah.
It's very much I think you've seen everything, have you? Well, how about this?
Yeah, I think this is what Sharknado thinks it is, in terms of like the constantly escalating craziness and to a hilarious degree. And it'll always have time for like a gag. Like I remember when he's just in a field. I think he's just fallen out of a helicopter, which looked amazing. And he finds a horse, and he just gets on the horse, and there's a few seconds of the Magnificent Seven theme, and then he just falls off and starts running instead.
Yeah, it's great. It really is. And I mean, this revels in its absurdity, whereas Sharknado is always nudging you and going, "Hey, did you see that? That's weird, isn't it?"
David Hasselhoff? Huh? What do you think of that?
Whereas if just listen to me for once, Nigel. For the alternative for Hardcore Henry, if David Hasselhoff was in it, he'd walk in and be like, "Hey, how can I help?" And then they just fucking put him in through a thresher, and then he'd dance in his fragments. It's really good. It may not appeal to everybody.
I can't think of anyone who wouldn't be in some way pleased by this. Literally no one. Get your nan and your gay lover and your priest and your doctor.
A difficult life.
You'll have a complicated life. Please get in touch.
Yeah. Hey, do you know what? Hardcore Henry probably is for you. Exercise some demons, and then your priest can also exercise some demons.
Take an afternoon off, from all the shit you got going on.
Yeah, maybe it is just, don't show it to your gran. Don't show it to your 2-year-old, because he won't understand the pure genius of Sharlto Copley. But other than that, I mean,
it takes a while.
I can't really think of many of my friends who would think this is bullshit. I can think of one in particular who I did bring up in the last time we did this, the one who
the one that Paul
has to ask if this is a Paul film. Yeah. She probably wouldn't like it, but other than that, it really does have a lot going on, and it just seemed to slip by the radar there.
It was during a very busy summer, if I remember correctly.
Not busy for me.
It might have been the shadow of Age of Ultron and various other things that were going on. There was a Jurassic World, I think, was that year, and Terminator Genesis, which I know a lot of people, Paul, were turned out for that one.
Yeah, Lot of queues that summer.
As my father used to say, a grenade a day keeps the enemy at bay. Come along.
My next one, Hard to Be a God. It's a 3-hour black and white Russian... Hey, come back! Hey! Oh,
poor film.
Это не Земля, это другая планета. Такая же, как Земля, но не догнавшая ее лет на 800.
This one might not be for everyone. In fact, this is probably my forbidden room of the year. We all have a forbidden room of the year. The one film that you're not going to convince any fucker to watch. But it's worth a go. So, the story. A bunch of scientists from Earth have gone to a nearby planet that is exactly the same as Earth, except the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, never happened. And in fact, there is consequently, they are stuck in the Dark Ages, in the sort of medieval time. People live in castles, and there's a feudalist society based around dons. The scientists are tasked with disguising themselves as locals and trying to nudge society towards sort of enlightenment. Our main character takes on the guise of Don Ramata, and the movie starts with him having been there for quite a while, and he seems to have given up and just fully immersed himself in the filth and the madness of this world that we're living in. He makes half-hearted attempts to find a doctor who we are led to believe is going to be an important character in the process of modernizing this world, but there is an anti-intellectual movement underway, and intellectuals are being hung and sort of executed in these really awful ways. So he's just got to try and blend in more than anything else with the madness. But the film leaves it ambiguous as to whether or not that's what he's doing, or if he has just in fact gone mad. So it was a troubled production. The director, Alexei Gaman, came up with the idea he adapted the book by the Strugatsky brothers, who sort of wrote things like the story behind Stalker, very big Russian sci-fi authors. Alexei Gaman wanted to direct it in the 60s, finally got funding to do so in 2000, spent 7 years shooting it, and then another 8 years editing it until shooting heroin and the crew. And then he spent 8 years editing it until he died in 2013 or 2012, maybe.
God.
And his wife and son then came in to sort of finish it, Christopher Tolkien style. So it's a film that a man held on to for most of his career and never was ready to finish with it until it finally sort of killed him. Not directly, but directly. The reels fell on him. It's a film that he spent his whole life developing and working on, and I love it. Firstly, because of its world, which is this absolutely fucking filthy place. There's mud and shit and awful things everywhere. It's a view of medieval life that sort of brings to mind Andrei Rublev, the Tarkovsky film, The Seventh Seal, and also people have made comparisons to the Holy Grail. Because,
I was just thinking that when you said covered in shit.
Yes, it's very much... The aesthetic is actually quite similar to that, but imagine it without the open fields. Instead, everything is set in sort of really small, messy rooms where food is sort of laid out right next to insect nests and, and the sort of hole in the wall that people shit out of. And
it's like the Bring Out Your Dead scene.
It really is.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
It's very Terry Gilliam-esque, because there's this wonderful strangeness to the way everything is designed, a sort of haphazard, improvised nature to the way things work. But then you'll just have our main character with his sort of resplendent beard playing a mysterious instrument that sounds like a saxophone, dancing around the dining hall whilst people are sort of draining various things and lying dying on the floor. And it's just it's an extraordinary film, and the black and white photography makes the texture of all of this really quite visceral. It is a tough watch, but the style of the film is very dreamlike. It's very languid. The camera sort of drifts and pokes around, almost as if it was a sort of invasive set of eyes. It's quite a claustrophobic film. We're sort of encouraged to sort of leer into this world and sort of experience his characters that way. But there's something about it that feels titanic, that feels huge. It feels like one of the most important films made in the last decade that nobody's really talking about. It's a story about madness. It's about progress. It's about mankind and the sort of traps that it falls into. And regarding the madness, there's something I've always found intoxicating about real cinematic madness. And I felt this way about High Rise, the Ben Wheatley film as well, which is when you see characters who are just going to fucking let loose and just behave to whatever whim comes their way. There's something just so purely addictive about it, of just, what they're saying doesn't have to make sense. They don't have to listen to each other. They don't have to do anything. They're just fucking mad. But yeah, you kind of get why Don Rumata has been seduced by this world. The power he is given, he's a very eccentric character who sort of is very playful. At one point, there's a very solemn scene where a bunch of men are coming out to begin I think it's when they're about to begin a march to another place in order to find a swordsman who might know where the doctor is. And his squire comes out, sort of overburdened with all the swords and stuff that he has to carry with him. And Don Rumata just comes out holding a mouse, which he just shoves into somebody's shirt. Just some random passerby, and then sort of squirms. And he doesn't even laugh, he just turns and walks away, having done it. And it's that sort of mischievous thing that he's got going on.
Mischief with the audience as well as the townsfolk.
Yeah, absolutely. And, why not? The townsfolk are all fucking bleak and,
apes.
It's very unlikely that an action will lead to a consequence in this world, which disadvantages you as well as advantages you, because you might just be executed for no fucking reason.
Well, why not throw a fish?
It's just a very rich film. Right from the beginning, it just absorbs you in.
Yeah. The premise alone is just fucking fascinating.
It's one of those great sci-fi novel premises.
Yeah, I didn't realise what it was, and when you mentioned the film, I thought, okay, that sounds laborious in a good way. Like any good Tarkovsky. And but that premise is just incredible. I really do want to watch it. Can you do me a favour and buy me this for my birthday, please?
I will do that. I'll see it. Father's Day is coming up, and I've always thought of you as very much like a father in a strictly beard-having sense.
A very secular sense.
A very sexular sense.
Ooh. Yeah. Heard it here first, listeners. No, second. Sorry, second.
Yeah.
There was that time.
I want to fuck my dad, says noted podcast man.
And noted
acclaimed
disability
pervert.
advocate.
Acclaimed pervert and film critic.
One and the same. That Venn diagram's just a circle.
That's Mark Kermode.
Yeah, we're coming for you, Kermode, is what I was going to say. Never mind.
I want to fuck my dad.
Mark Hamill stars in Brigsby Bear.
Look at the Razorbucks, James. They're out there every night. The difference is we have dreams and imaginations to help us escape. And no one can take that away from you. Ever.
2017. Did mention it in the top 30 last year, but didn't really have much of a chance to go into just why I loved it and think that everybody should see it. This is another one, much like Squid and the Whale, actually. It's a bit of an indie quirk fest, but it's gone its own way. It's really blazed a new trail.
It's blazed a real saddle.
Shitty, murky rainbow road. It has. And the premise basically is James is been brought up watching one TV show, The Brigsby Bear Adventures, and he's based his whole life around it, basically. He has the mythos for the Brigsby Bearverse pinned on his wall. He's discussing it with his parents all the time, who are also trying to get him to, go back to his studies, and maths and science is very important. And then his whole world is turned upside down when it turns out that his world is just like containment center almost in the middle of the desert.
It's turned upside down when the shipping container they're living in is turned upside down.
Upside down, yes. But literally by the realization that the people he thought were his parents, Mark Hamill and Jane Addams, are not his parents. He was kidnapped as a child, and now he's going back into the real world without his Brigsby Bear. It's a lot like Room in that respect, but plus bear. And he's also seeing a social worker, and he's trying to acclimatise. But obviously, most of Brigsby Bear is spent on the outside as opposed to Room. Oh, spoiler! And he, but it's about him and his friends, his new friends, trying to recreate Brigsby Bear because he can't really let go of that obsession. And it's about everyone sort of pitching in and helping him adjust to the world, but also clinging on to this thing. And there's a lot of interesting stuff with the relationship he has with his captor parents. There's an interesting relationship with them. Obviously, there's a lot of I was going to say Stockholm syndrome, but he wasn't even aware that they were kidnapping him, so it's different to that.
There's Blockholm syndrome.
Blockholm syndrome, that's it. Blockholm syndrome, yes. And he, so as well as it being quite a cutesy indie quirk fest of a film, there's a really dark undertone there, and there's a really interesting sort of psychological element of this guy trying to adapt. He's a pure, like, total innocent who's just trying to make his way through this world and, drug experiences and things like that. It's really inventive in a Michel Gondry sort of way with the way they go around. They go about recreating Brigsby Bear, and it's ever so funny. The way, without being cringe humor. Yeah, which meant that I was able to enjoy it without feeling sick.
Yeah, because it's not just a case of, he comes and he says something awkward and everyone's uncomfortable. For the most part, people really like him. Yeah, with the exception of his terrible sister, who comes around. But yeah, everybody just really finds him charming, and the sort of insight that he has into life.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's very accepting and just sort of happy to work with that.
Yeah.
Greg Kinnear is in this as Detective Vogel, and he's sort of overseeing his case and his reintegration into society, but he's also quite a sympathetic character who's also enabling him to like take Brigsby Bear stuff out of the evidence locker and like chase his bliss. Is Greg Kinnear at his best, I think. It's just ever so good. It's a feel-good film, with some sort of dark, serious undertones, and it plays the two off quite nicely.
Ultimately, just really good-natured.
Yeah.
Try to imagine a hero. He's not on the bad side. He's on the good side.
Okay, my next one is Under the Silver Lake.
Who moves out in the middle of the night?
Nothing strange about it.
I don't understand why she didn't tell me.
Maybe she didn't like you. Maybe she knows you're poor and haven't paid your rent.
I found some kind of code or like secret message in her apartment. It means stay quiet.
Our world is filled with codes, subliminal messages, from Silver Lake to the Hollywood Hills.
Could any of this be connected to Sarah?
Now, this one's a bit of a cheat because most of you haven't actually had a chance to miss it yet.
No excuse.
I saw it at the Cannes Film Festival and was very excited about everybody seeing it. I was very excited about everybody seeing it and being able to talk about it with me. And let's just check in on that release date. Oh, December. Excellent. Which sucks for me because I really do want people to see this. And if it is at the London Film Festival, I'm just gonna fucking take everyone, even you. And you're in Australia, and I hate you. So.
Can't wait to see how that's going to play out.
You'll just wake up on the plane. I really just want to put this one on everyone's radar because I think it's really special, and I think the only two things that might do so otherwise is the fact that Andrew Garfield's in it, and that it's from the director of It Follows, which will mean a lot to a certain cult community. It meant a lot to me.
Even me.
Absolutely. So the star is... Yep. Story is...
Yeah.
The story of the star is of Sam. He seems affable, but he has a dark side.
Okay.
Early on, he shows that he has a temper. He really likes his car and his flat, and he can't really afford to keep either. He's unemployed. It's never really discussed why, and he becomes obsessed with his neighbor, played by, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Riley Koch, maybe.
Sure.
She was in Blade Runner. Ko? Yeah.
Kyo.
Let's go with that.
Cough.
Cough. Riley Cough. He becomes obsessed with her. And then, after they spend a night sort of half bonding, only not really, but it's, it is for Andrew Garfield, she disappears. Yeah. And all sorts of weird shit's going on. Something to do with 3 mysterious girls who are always seen together, who at one stage get onto a swan boat in order to elude capture. There's a fucking guy in a pirate costume who's involved in some way. There's a chick who does party tricks with balloons who's also involved. It becomes madness and very strange.
Okay.
But it's got Andrew Garfield as this incredibly dynamic lead character who's just going to try and follow this case no matter how crazy it gets. And you can always sort of rely on Garfield to have sort of realistic reactions to things. He's a sort of constant for the audience.
Except in Hacksaw Ridge.
Indeed. In this, you can always rely on Garfield to have sort of...
okay.
You can rely on Sam
Glorious.
to sort of be the thing that grounds you as the world gets crazier and crazier.
I get it.
And then you've got side performances that are fucking amazing. Jimmy Simpson, who... I don't know if people will know who I mean by that, but he's in Westworld playing the sort of young idealistic one. He's been around.
Where do I know him from?
He plays this sort of charismatic...
House of Cards. That's
right.
how I know him.
He plays this really fucking charismatic guy. I'm trying to think of someone I could compare him to. Maybe Chris Evans' character from Scott Pilgrim.
Okay.
He's just this sort of very... He's a really funny but sort of really charismatic person, which I think is really cool. The performances are quite eccentric, especially from the myriad women who Sam sort of encounters along the way.
Topher Grace is in this?
Topher Grace
man at
is
bar.
in there. Yes.
How is he as a man at bar?
I'm very convincing. I never doubted that he was at that bar. There's just so many disparate elements working. It's like a Pincher novel, except with a consistent main character. So it's like Inherent Vice. Actually, Inherent Vice was something I thought about during the film, because it has that sort of noir-style detective character who's sort of traveling from place to place, encountering people, and trying to get to the bottom of a mystery, and the mystery does not disappoint. Throughout the whole thing, you're constantly thinking, well, what does this mean? What's that? And how does this fit into it? And then when you find out what it is, it's pretty great. The film is weaving a lore out of the various facets of LA mythos. Great. So you've got, like, conspiracy theories, urban legends, pop culture. At one point, there's an important plot point that involves Nintendo Power. Comic books are in there. There's it's just it all sort of melds together to form this universe that Sam explores in a desperate attempt to find his missing neighbor. And some mysteries, and there's one mystery in particular that's never quite explained, and that's one of the reasons I just can't wait for people to see this, so that they can share their own opinions on what this particular thing meant and if it was significant. But there's kind of an anxiety that builds up throughout the film as you get worried about things going too far, or things becoming out of reach, or what does this mean, or is the film not going to resolve this? But almost all of the mysteries are resolved in a really satisfying way, and one of the reveals that the film has regarding the songwriter, one of my favorite things I've seen in a film in a long time. Like, what's implied by that sequence is brilliant. I love it.
Great.
Yeah, just so many revelations throughout the film, and it's just thoroughly entertaining as well. So I hope this will be seen, and I hope it will be reappraised, because it's got somewhat middling reviews based on Cannes.
Yeah.
But I assure you, nobody that knows what the fuck is going on at Cannes. So until this actually gets a release, I think it's promising enough that A24 have agreed to distribute it, because their fucking string of hits is ridiculous. Oh, and the music's by Disasterpiece again. They did the music to it.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Well then, till December, sir.
We shall pick this point up in December, when everyone will have panned it as the biggest waste of fucking time ever put to celluloid.
And then I'll take that time that you've managed to put me on a plane to come over to England to watch it to also murder you.
Why do we assume that all of this information is what we're told it is? Maybe there are people out there who are more important than us, more powerful, communicating things in the world that are meant for only them and not for us.
Yeah.
Oh, you think that's weird?
A little.
Okay, now, we're going to do what we did last year. We are going to cover ourselves in jam and hurl ourselves down Lewisham High Street. It's going to take more organising, but it's going to happen. Before we do that, we're going to talk about two filmmakers whose work we feel has been somewhat maligned in the public awarenesses.
My pick is a young man with a lot of hope in his pocket and cream. But he never mixes the two. It's, of course, Derek Cianfrance.
Yeah, it is.
Director of Blue Valentine, Place Beyond the Pines, and The Light Between Oceans. Also of Brother Tide from 1998, which I haven't seen because I'm a hack. But the first of his that I saw was Blue Valentine, and it's stuck with me ever since because it's just such a powerfully depressing, yet hilarious look at the falling apart of a relationship.
You got any, like, talents?
Like hidden talents?
Can you dance? You can tap dance?
Can you?
No. Here, I'll play a song and you dance. Okay. I can't really sing. I have to sing goofy in order to sing. Like, I have to sing stupid. Okay?
Okay.
It's a film that's... it charts the getting together and breaking up of Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams. If it feels real, that's because they lived together for a few months before filming. They weren't allowed to leave the house, I don't think, all that often.
What else you had to deal with Derek Cianfrance? You don't want to tangle with him.
He didn't get off that front door, that front step, not once. He's like Gaspar Noé, but Derek Cianfrance. You can imagine such a thing. So Blue Valentine, it has like just this amazing chemistry, and again, it's claustrophobic because they're obviously in this terrible falling apart disaster of a relationship, but they've got a kid. They've got such great chemistry, and they make each other laugh, and they clearly loved each other at one point. But it's just unsalvageable. Yeah, and it's. This thing is picked apart, it's vivisectioned for us to see, and it's just done with such feeling. I've seen it so many times now. I've recommended it to people in the past with mostly positive, not positive, but like, yes, that was a good film, Paul. Thank you for showing that to me.
I quite enjoyed it.
I love how there's no hope. But
really reminded me of that bitch Michelle
Williams. Yeah, the next one he did, The Place Beyond the Pines. How are you going to top Blue Valentine? Well, with a 2.5 hour sprawling film about 50 different characters, the main of which are Ryan Gosling, Eva Mendes, Bradley Cooper, and crazy creepy laugh man Ray Liotta.
Can I give it to him?
You want to give him ice cream?
Yeah. I'm going to do something with him that's his first time. I'm gonna look in his face when he tries ice cream. Every time he has ice cream for the rest of his life, he's gonna see my fucking face.
Man, this is it's a story told over a few generations. Ryan Gosling is a stunt rider who gets caught up in some shady shit, and
with Ben Mendelsohn, some Ben Mendelsohn shit, which is the shadiest.
Ben Mendelsohn, Jesus, I forgot he was in that. I just remember what he looks like. Bradley Cooper is a cop who's sort of playing against Ryan Gosling, and then he gets wrapped up in something with Ray Liotta, and then it goes on to the next generation of their kids and how they sort of deal with the fallout. There's a never-endingness to the film, and there's a sense of fait accompli, I think, to this film, which is definitely a thing in life, and I think it was it slipped between the cracks for that reason. The narrative isn't a reliably start, middle, end narrative. The strength is completely in the characters. There are some moments in this particularly with Ryan Gosling, that just broke my fucking heart into tiny pieces. Any scene of him interacting with a small baby human is just, God,
terrifying.
Makes me want to take that womb that they're always trying to sell me around the corner and try and do something special with it. It's but again, it's just painfully real characters, painfully real situations that it's just a million hearts breaking at once. Like I don't know quite how else to say it. And then he did The Light Between Oceans.
Dearest Isabel, I can't stop thinking about the time I spent with you.
Dearest Tom, when I first saw you, I felt like I knew you, and I couldn't stop seeing my life with you.
Which was maligned. It wasn't really that well reviewed, and that was a real surprise. I remember coming out of it and really enjoying it, and about 3 months later I was going to recommend it to Nell, and I went to link the Rotten Tomatoes page to it and realised that it had actually bad reviews. It was badly reviewed. It baffled me because this is a film about Michael Fassbender coming out of the First World War, and he goes off to live on an Australian island to work in a lighthouse in Western Australia, and there are these themes of PTSD and the need for solitude and finding solace in this person halfway around the world, played incredibly well by Alicia Vikander. Yeah, and the story is this lonely sort of damaged guy and this woman meet. They find out they can't have kids, and then they find a baby that they decide to raise, and turns out that it is Rachel Weisz's baby, and she wants it back for some reason. There's this sort of overarching, everlasting themes of loneliness and this scrabble for meaning and trying to do something good with your life, but the forces of the world conspiring against you, I think. And not that it's a bad thing or an evil thing, it's just the way of the world. And again, it's just so well realised in this film. There's some really amazing performances. Michael Fassbender, he just performs film in, film out. He's like Michael Caine in The Swarm. You can never really fault a Fassbender performance, can you? Alicia Vikander and Rachel Weisz are just heartbreaking again. And man, I said heartbreaking so many times for Derek Cianfrance, but he does all of it without hyperbole, without exaggeration or embellishment. I haven't said how beautifully all the films are shot as well. He's got such an eye for it. I really can't wait to see what he's doing next. And speaking of what he's doing next, Metalhead, which is in post-production. The story of a heavy metal drummer who blows his eardrums out and must learn to adapt to a world of silence, an introspective journey into the vortex of our senses, tinkering with cinema's boundaries.
Who's playing?
And that stars Edgar Livengood.
Oh, I've not heard of him.
Livengood?
Oh,
Livengood as himself.
Oh, wow.
Is it a documentary, or has he just had the actual people play the roles?
Oh, who's to say? Very interesting.
It says drama, so and I mean that's so fucking Derek Cianfrance, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just it's another film that's going to etch its way into my heart. It's a real crime that he hasn't been lauded like I think he should be.
Yeah.
He's got just such a natural talent, and a couple of his films may require a bit of patience, but it pays off dividends.
Yeah, definitely. He's a really emotional sort of filmmaker, and I think that really shows in his films. What a ridiculous thing to say. Okay. As opposed to in his eyebrows, where it might show. Lynn Ramsey. Lynn Ramsey may be one of the most important directors working today because she is capable of that pure cinema that people write about. She is able to use the medium to its absolute fullest potential, marrying sound and image to maximum effect, dialing back things like dialogue and exposition. No monologues, ever. No narration. Just get inside the head and live in there. If you haven't heard of her, and I will be discussing why maybe you haven't in a moment, I can't recommend the 4 feature films that she has made enough. So, the films are, first of all, Ratcatcher.
What's it here? What? Is it here? That kind of gives me the creeps. Do you know about the wee boy down there? No. Ryan Quinn?
1999. It's about a kid living in Glasgow in 1977, I think it is, during the full-scale sort of bin men strikes, which means there's filth just piling up on the streets. It's very unhygienic. It's dangerous. It's pretty bleak. The housing is bad. It's currently undergoing the process of sort of modernization, and people are being selected to move on to better places, but it's taking a while to get round to everyone, and this kid's family is sort of just left in the limbo, waiting for news. And the kid is playing in a filthy canal with his friend when they're roughhousing, and the friend drowns. And he thinks nobody saw him do it, so he runs away. And then it's basically just about the guilt he feels, but at no stage are we afforded a flashback, nor do we ever hear him say or tell anyone what he's feeling. What he's feeling is purely explored through this boy, his acting, his face, and the way Lynn Ramsey just sort of captures him in this incredibly bleak environment. And yet also echoes of hope. There's a sequence where he takes the bus to the end of the line and finds a house there which overlooks a huge wheat field, and he goes running about in it, and I don't know, the bleakness of it and the fact that it concerns itself with working class children did remind me of something by the Dardenne brothers, and very particularly The Promise, which has a similar sort of story of a boy dealing with guilt and trying to rectify things. Except that Lynn Ramsey's film is full of sort of wonder and fantasy. There's a sequence where a mouse is tied to a balloon and sort of let go, and we see the mouse sort of fly up to the moon and land on the moon and sort of be with his little rat friends that are up there. So it's got that sense of wonder to it, and that extraordinary visual strength that Ramsey's going to bring to all of her films. And the film also has Tommy Flanagan. Do you know who I mean when I say Tommy Flanagan?
The guy with the scars.
Yes, he's a very familiar face to most people. He was in Gladiator, Face Off, Braveheart, all the good ones. So that's Ratcatcher. Next, unfortunately, is the only one I didn't manage to see. There is a reason for that. It's Morven Collar. Samantha Mawson plays a woman who wakes up to find that her boyfriend has killed himself in her flat. Having written a note on the computer before going, she lies about where he is for a few days and then decides to get rid of the body, and then tries to get the novel that he wrote before he killed himself published. So again, it's a film which seems to be about mysterious motivations, not quite ever getting fully inside Samantha Mawson's head, but instead trying to tell the story purely visually. I didn't see it because it was actually quite difficult to see it for a while. There does seem to have been a reprint now, so there are some affordable copies out there. For a while, it was one of those things where it was like several £100 for the DVD, but it's out there now, so get hold of a copy. I've got one on order, but it didn't arrive in time, so I genuinely can't wait to watch it.
Cool.
After that, she took some time off and made We Need to Talk About Kevin in 2011.
Yes.
Adaptation of Lionel Shriver's sort of best-selling book, and I think one that sort of was disadvantaged by that. The story is of a woman who is played by Tilda Swinton here, and her son is responsible for a high school massacre, I think is revealed pretty early on. He is a sort of mass murderer of his fellow students. The exact details of which aren't revealed until much later on. In that way, it sort of serves like a in cold blood crime story of sort of keeping the grisly details back until the very end. It's mainly about, though, Tilda Swinton's turmoil. And again, we're not going to get narration. We're not going to get anything sort of spoken directly to us. It's just going to be from looks, the way she sets up her frame, the way that we sort of see little details and how they change and what they mean, and extraordinary central performances from Tilda Swinton and is it Ezra Miller playing Kevin?
Ezra Miller?
Ezra Miller.
Yes,
Ezra Miller.
Flash.
Yes, the Flash himself, who is extraordinary as sort of young Kevin. Very charismatic and very disturbing. And very much like the novel, it's this brilliant insight into the complexity of parenthood, not even just motherhood. Just for me, it was always about the scary idea that a number of people go into parenthood not because they want to, but because they're afraid of things getting to be too late, which is definitely the motive given in the book. And then, what if you do that, and rather than feeling that what's the word? Sort of not unrequited love that unconditional love. That'll be it. I have to look it up.
Not familiar with that concept.
Wait, without any clauses? Madness. What if you don't feel that unconditional love? What if you have this kid and you feel nothing towards him? What if that fucks him up and ruins him and turns him into the next Hitler? You know, that sort of anxiety is very much at the center of the thing.
It's just about fucking.
Do you know what that means?
The boy puts his pee-pee in the girl's doo-doo.
Haven't you ever wished you had somebody else around to play with?
No.
You might like it.
What if I don't like it?
Then you get used to it.
Just because you're used to something doesn't mean you like it. You're used to me.
What really scared me about that was the fact that it's out of her control completely.
Yeah.
From a very early point.
Yeah.
In the book and the film is such a good adaptation of the book. There's this sense of it just spiraling completely out of her control.
Yeah.
Really early on.
Absolutely.
It's devastating.
Absolutely it is. I do think it was slightly in the shadow of the book because the book is able to execute the twist arguably better. In terms of story, it has more build-up because there's something that's been happening throughout the book that is then subverted by the reveal. But the film, in the same way that the book is sort of incredibly inventive with the sort of way in which books can be written and the... Is it
one of the best epistolary novels?
That's the one, yeah, the epistolary nature of it and what you can do to sort of move around assumptions. I've always thought one of the best things about novels and literature as a medium is your capacity for ambiguity. The fact that, you know, you can describe something without showing it.
Yeah.
For example, in Game of Thrones, you can say, and then there was a character who had a scar and a long beard, and everybody's like, oh my god, that might be him or him or him. Whereas, you know, in a visual medium, you'd have to show them, and then it's like, oh, it's him.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
In the same way, just the movie makes full use of cinema as an art form, and just really tells this story just through that medium, and I think it's gorgeous. I mean, certain sequences, like Tilda Swinton's idealized view of her days of travel when she's at that festival where the red stuff's being thrown around and she's just being carried through it, that sticks with you. And just the sadness of the small details, like the little bedroom that she's keeping for Kevin, you know, when and if he ever gets out and decides that he wants to be her son again. It's a heartbreaking film aside from anything else.
It's a film that I remember in images more than lines.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very, you know, it's just a sequence of extremely powerful images.
Yeah.
Whether it's baleful stares from Kevin or just these great ideas of Tilda Swinton's character.
Yeah.
Just to be sort of shit on by this horrible demon child.
Yeah. But also her coldness and aloofness sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like that's handled really well. The fact that when Kevin does do something shitty, rather than get angry with him, she just looks broken. And you wonder how that gnaws away at the kid.
Yeah, it toes that line that's a major thing in the book is you know, this thing of an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Who, you know, where does the blame lie? Is there blame?
Exactly.
Yeah, and it is there, and again, just through these images that are scorched on my mind's eye.
Yeah, absolutely. I've already spoken about her fourth film, You Were Never Really Here, in my top 10 of the year last year list.
You have kids, Joe? No. Nina. Her name is Nina. I've heard of these places. Underage girls. Senator, if she's there, I'll get her. Cleary said you were brutal. I can be.
It's just a story about a thug, really, about a fixer who goes around beating people up, and it's about the humanity at his heart. It's one of Joaquin Phoenix's best roles. It's, again, a visually stunning film. You know how in Drive you never get a sense of Ryan Gosling's backstory? Well, here you get glimpses, just enough that you might piece together some of the horrible things that have happened to Joe. Without anything ever being sort of too overt. But it's, again, just a stunningly beautiful film because it's life as explored by Joe. It sort of has the My Stars the Destination style thing, where you're taking on the perspective of a character that normally the film would not be about. But his perspective is just so sort of beautiful. It's and disturbed.
That's really interesting. I like the sound of that. With the novel of Drive, actually, it's, for me, the character, I mean, he's given backstory, but it's so overt that it really shatters the mystique of the character.
Yeah, you'll definitely get mystique from this.
Okay, I do like mystique.
I like some mystiques.
Oh, Mystique would be nice, but
you know, who's got the time for it, mate? So, one of the things that you may have noticed about her is that she brilliantly blends sort of genre movies and art movies. You know, there's sort of thriller aspects to all of these films, and you know, some fairly horrific aspects and some, you know, action-y parts. But she's going to subvert expectations every time, and she's going to deliver an experience that you've never sort of had before. And I think any opportunity to see these films on the big screen should be relished, because that's what she's making them for.
Relished,
because that's what she's making them for. She's making them for the cinema, and it's just one of those filmmakers who, rather than focusing on story or any other concern, is fixated on making a cinematic experience, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
She hasn't quite hit the big time yet, and I think part of that is because of her beautiful determination not to accept shit. She was attached to The Lovely Bones, the film adaptation of the book. She walked away because the producers were being too religiously stuck on the book, and she found that really stifling, so she left, and Peter Jackson came in. And have you seen the Lovely Bones film?
No, it wasn't great from what I've heard.
It was not great. No, it was it was just basically a defanged version of the book, you know, with any of the sort of more provocative elements or interesting characterization taken out. And it was visually striking, although one can't help but think what Lynn Ramsey would have done with with the fucking afterlife. You know, just rendered in full.
Even the child murder.
Even the child murder, which is fairly uncomfortable. I mean, Peter Jackson makes very functionally good films, even the worst of them. But it is definitely his weakest film, I feel. It's the one I remember the least.
Weaker than The Hobbit?
Yeah, probably. Well, maybe not.
Christ.
Maybe not the first one.
Okay.
Or the second.
Can't go lower than Zero Fangs. So, yeah, okay.
And then she was also attached to Jane Got a Gun. I don't know if you remember, it was the Natalie Portman film a few years ago, Western. And again, she walked away from that because she was getting too much interference. The guy who directed Warrior, a film we both like, came in, but apparently delivered on something that's very tonally inconsistent and fairly dull throughout. I haven't actually seen it, so I can't comment, but it does sound like it was really missing Ramsey's presence. So
also, those mechanical spiders are really out of place.
I mean, really? I mean, whose idea was that? Fucking John Peters. I don't remember if that was his name, but fuck you, John Peters.
Jon Snow, probably.
Yeah, definitely, him too.
So Channel 4 presenter.
So if things are shit, she's just going to walk away, and she's going to make more short films that she loves doing. She's not going to compromise on her vision, and, you know, unfortunately, it looks like she's getting a lot of shtick. You know, she's being opposed a lot, and I'm hoping that maybe after this one, she might now finally get her due. But then again, she has been making incredible films since the 90s, so I don't know. I hope it gets easier, because her future is very interesting. She's constantly talked about wanting to remake Moby Dick as a sci-fi film. Moby Dick in space. Okay. You know, and there's wonderful capacity there for sort of...
I hope that's the title.
Yeah. That's how she always refers to it.
Moby Dick in space.
Moby Dick in space. You know, there's great capacity there for some sort of weird star beast that the captain, you know, refuses to give up on in revenge for his crew.
Yeah.
And there's all these action sequences where they're sort of taking it on, and I want to see that. God damn it. So
fuck yeah.
Somebody give her money and then get out of her way. You know, she's one of those
Joaquin
directors.
Phoenix was billed as the whale. It's going to be great.
He's fucking put on... He's put on 30,000 tons of actual weight.
Tons.
She's one of those directors, like Christopher Nolan. Just wind her up and let her go, you know? Just give her the money, and then come back in a year, and she'll have a film for you.
You mean figuratively, not like, you're putting on weight. Oh, come on, Lynn. See a couple of spots there.
Yeah, piss her off.
Go, use it.
Piss her off and watch her go. That's the moral here. But, no, I love Lynn Ramsey, and I really hope that she starts getting sort of more control over her projects on a bigger scale soon. We need this voice.
Yeah, I can't wait to finally watch the film that you've been banging on about for half a year.
You're going to hate it. You're going to hate it, and Under the Silver Lake.
I'm going to watch it on a phone, though, to see if she turns up and eats the phone.
She will. She'll come round.
Meant for cinema, she says.
Okay, shall we quickfire some good things?
Yeah.
Okay.
First one, 2017, Martin Freeman, Cargo.
This country changing. Sick. We all get sick. You get sick too.
There's released on Netflix, and then it wasn't released on Netflix. It had a cinema run, and who knows what the fuck's going on with it nowadays. But
currently on VHS.
After an epidemic, yeah, get it on Betamax. Martin Freeman's Cargo. Directed by Ben Howling and Yolanda Ramker. After an epidemic spread all over Australia, a father searches for someone willing to protect his daughter. It starts off incredibly uncomfortably tense. Some really great horror beats in it, and then it becomes like a moderately touching story about this guy's relationship with this Aboriginal girl, but then it becomes a really nice story of fatherhood. Come the end. It's got quite a lot going on about it. It really makes the most of its stark Australian outback, and I really can't emphasize how tense and scary it is at times.
Beautiful. I can't wait to see it. That sounds really cool. My first one is Lake Mungo, an Australian horror film from a few years ago now.
I feel like something bad is going to happen to me. It hasn't reached me yet, but it's on its way.
Family and friends
the normally
of Alice
tranquil
Palmer
setting of
gathered
Ararat's
to pay
Norval
their
Dam
final
was
respects
Alice
to a young
Palmer
woman
Knoll.
taken too soon.
10 days after Ellie's funeral, stuff started happening around the house. Sounds seemed to come from Ellie's old room.
So I thought, well, I'll just set up a camera to, see anything. I looked back and there was footage of a figure moving across the hallway.
Yeah, it's about a young girl who drowns in a nearby reservoir, and her family it's a mockumentary style thing, so it's a documentary sort of fixated on the family, and after the death some strange things start to happen, and then it kind of preempts all of these true crime documentaries that are now becoming so popular, because it's sort of paced that way, with revelation after revelation coming out throughout the film's run about who the girl was, the nature of the haunting, and it all builds up to a climax that is fucking terrifying. Like, it really upset me when the time I saw it. There's a very dark concept at the heart of the thing, which is very much like Twin Peaks in that way, once all the subplots and the side characters have fallen away, there is a very dark thing that is at the heart of the thing that happened, the actual crime in which she disappeared.
Okay.
And it's just worth watching for it being a sort of mystery box that keeps opening and keeps unraveling. And it's very naturally acted by what I assume are unprofessional actors. It's just a really interesting horror film, and a very novel one as well.
Great.
Cool.
Okay. My next one is the Trey Parker, Matt Stone film you might not have seen. Orgasmo.
Yay!
Hi, fellas. I'm ready to fudge.
Oh, my gosh.
You want me on top?
No. I'll be on top.
You're gonna make me come, or I'm gonna kick your butt. Come here now!
Trey Parker plays a naive young Mormon called Joe Young, who's recruited to act in porn movies. It's done with trademark South Park disregard for political correctness and fear of offending anyone. It's lewd without being, actually a porn film. Without actually being hardcore, or even softcore, I would say. Not even a nipple. I don't think we see a nipple.
No.
I hate this film. No, forget it. But it's consistent. It's very fast with the laughs, very consistent. Yeah. It's Trey Parker and Matt Stone at their creative sharpest.
Yeah, I think
creative sharpest.
Yeah, they're creative sharpie.
I would think so. I mean, there's lots of sex jokes with a sort of goofy superhero story tied in.
Yeah,
watch it if you like South Park and all that.
Early South Park.
Yeah.
So my next one is 3 Iron, or as it was called in Korean, Empty House, which is a much fucking better name for it. Should have been called that. It's a film by Kim Ki-duk, who's a South Korean director who's extraordinarily good. All of the films I've seen of his are just brilliant, and this one's I think my favourite. It's about a guy who enjoys breaking into people's homes when they're not there, and sort of just living their lives whilst he's in there. He fixes some things, he cleans some clothes, he just pretends to be living in this home until the owners come back, at which point he runs. Only in one instance, he falls in love with the woman whose house he's broken into, and weirdly, she falls in love back through some contrivances. He then has to try and figure out a way of continuing to live in this woman's house without her husband knowing. So he becomes a sort of ghost in the end. But it's a film that's very much not about its plot. It's about the pacing and the atmosphere and how it's going to tell its stories, like a number of my films, today have been. It's a really sweet story. It's a very strange one as well. And it feels very sort of South Korean / Japanese in terms of its handling of loneliness. The sort of eccentric behaviour and sort of, hey, maybe this is an answer to modern life. I find it horrific. Well, you would, wouldn't you, fucking Englishman?
Okay. The Meyerowitz Story is another Noah Baumbach film.
Yeah.
New and selected, close parenthesis. It's one of the best Adam Sandler performances that you'll ever see. It's Ben Stiller at his dramatic best.
Yeah.
Really harkening back to the Royal Tenenbaums kind of levels. Dustin Hoffman, it's really good to see him doing something really good again after I sort of stopped watching his Meet the Fuckers bullshit.
Yeah. And
Elizabeth Marvel as the sister to Sandler and Ben Stiller, all very, very good. All kind of, she's incredibly deadpan. The Adam Sandler is just an absolute histrionic, hypochondriac mess, sort of neurotic catastrophe. And Ben Stiller is sort of, he's got little flashes of his father in his aloofness and his abruptness. And it's just such a well-crafted scene of a family. It's really charmingly funny. Touching in places without sort of tugging on the heartstrings all that much. It's a series of episodes that go seamlessly together.
Okay, my next one is Dead or Alive 2 Birds. Now, I was having this is unrelated to the video game.
Shock and terror.
Shock and terror.
Okay.
Unrelated to the video games and its film adaptation. This is Takeshi Miike's second part of his Dead or Alive trilogy that he made in 2000. Now, I was having a bit of a Takeshi Miike retrospective of a couple of his sort of better known, I'm not watching all 100 films, but some of his better known films, and the films that I remember from being a kid, and I think I only got as far as Dead or Alive 1 as a kid. Dead or Alive 1 is sort of very provocative. It has a lot of extreme stuff and stuff that's clearly there to offend sensibilities, but not much of a sense of fun or a real reason for being there beyond its sort of written purpose, which has aged a little. The second one, on the other hand, is exactly what I was hoping for, Takeshi Miike. It's a cult action film. Two hitmen go after the same target. They find out that they're actually childhood friends. They go back to their home where they have some very surreal experiences in revisiting their childhood, including a absolutely perverse school play that involves a sort of very rapey kind of forest god who's beaten into submission by various other characters. It's just sheer craziness. Meanwhile, back in where they've left, which I assume is Tokyo. It's usually Tokyo with Miike. The gangs have sort of gone on into an all-out war, and the two men ultimately decide that they're going to abandon their hitman ways and instead go after bad guys and go out of their way to be nice to people wherever they can. It's fucking hilarious. It's really exciting. The action sequences are sort of John Woo style explosions. It's surreal in that way that Miike often is. There's a moment where the two men just sort of develop angel wings for no reason. And this one feels more Tarantino than anything else because of the sort of, or should I say Rodriguez? It feels more like Rodriguez, I think. Especially the opening sequence in which a sort of lowly guy, explains the premise of the two gangs that are after each other and a third gang that's hoping to benefit from their conflict using cigarette packets, and he acts out the conflict with actual sound effects and sort of music. So it's very comical in that way. It's just good fun. Really good fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, my final one, to go back to the bottomless well of Australian cinema.
Oh, yeah.
Is 1997 cult classic, The Castle.
Our Crescent was going to be the heart of a major housing development, but it never got up. They reckon the planes put people off. Them and the power lines. Not Dad. He reckons power lines are a reminder of man's ability to generate electricity. He's always saying great things like that.
Now, everyone from Australia, and maybe a couple of people from around the world, will know exactly what I'm talking about. I only saw it for the first time about 6 months ago. So the perks of having an Australian partner. It's about a working class family from Melbourne who fight City Hall after being told they've got to vacate their home to allow for an airport expansion, I think it is. And it's about this, this fairly sort of uneducated family bumbling their way through this legal process.
Yeah.
Only barely understanding anything that's going on. But the family dynamic is just amazing. The dad, Daryl, is the ultimate movie dad as far as I'm concerned. He's the nicest guy who just accepts all of his family's mediocrities as miracles.
Right.
When it comes to his wife bringing out dishes, he sits back and goes, love, what do you call this? Chicken. Like, he's just been fucking handed cordon bleu. His kids, who are pretty dull stuff, they're just
You're dull stuff, son.
You're a dull boy, Billy. they're like, it just has nothing but kindness and love for them. And this is one of Eric Bana's first roles as Poida.
Does he cut his own ears off at any stage?
He tries to, but
the director
has to wrestle him down. He's like, I love you, Eric. Stop it. Don't do this to yourself. Everyone is sort of innocently dull and dumb. And it's a really heartwarming film, but with just amazing comedy moments and enough catchphrases to keep Peter Kay going for 10 lifetimes. But good.
It's exactly what I wanted from this film.
Really worth watching. Yeah.
Excellent. My final one is a film that's probably not all that obscure. You may well have heard of it, but I watched it for the first time a couple days ago, and I was blown away by how good it was. This is Point Blank.
Walker is an emotional and primitive man.
Do you remember when we met? Suddenly, we were together.
Lee Marvin is Walker, the hunter and the hunted.
The 1967 neo-noir film by John Borman of Deliverance and Zardoz fame. We may well experience a John Borman film at some stage if we ever decide to do The Exorcist 2, Heretic. But Point Blank was early on for him, and it's fucking great. It's just brilliant. It's your classic thriller crime story plot. A guy is convinced by his friend to go on one last job, so he brings his wife with him, and they go and do this robbery on Alcatraz Island, I believe. They mow down a whole bunch of people and take the money. And then, oh no, the guy and his wife betray him and leave him for dead on Alcatraz Island with a bullet in his gut. He gets better, and he goes off to claim revenge on his former wife, his former friend, and all the people who are soon to be formerly living. It's just a fantastic... So any film that you can think of that's made in the last 50 years that's a sort of very conventional crime premise, but done very artfully, like The Driver, or A Thief, or Drive, or even You Were Never Really Here, owes something to Point Blank. It feels like a real original in that sense. It's just
cool,
quite violent, very funny in places, quite silly here and there. But just with sheer filmmaking bravado. Yeah, just fucking Lee Marvin busting into a room and fucking unloading his ridiculously large gun, which is the gun that Dirty Harry would eventually end up using, the M29.
Right.
The 44 Magnum. And it's just... Which he apparently had to fake the recoil on, because it wasn't moving when he was firing it. And they were like, we need this gun to look powerful. Can you pretend that it's moving your fucking powerful wrist? Even a little bit.
Ow.
Oh, it hurt my Lee Marvin hand.
Nothing hurts the Lee Marvin hand.
Fucking nothing.
Face it.
I don't know how obscure it is, especially since it was inducted into the Library of Congress 2 years ago.
I didn't even know what that is.
I think I saw one critic describe it as a brutal melodrama. That's what it is, and it's sort of very camp and very colourful and just so much fucking fun. I highly recommend it. Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Some really good recommendations there, then.
Yeah, I think so. Some real avant-garde style art film / genre movies.
And Orgasmo.
And Orgasmo, which is neither genre film nor avant-garde.
Nor film.
It's an idea. that Matt Stone, I don't know their names, and Trey Parker. Is that correct?
There you go.
Oh, good.
Yeah. You got it.
Yay! Oh, good day.
Oh, mate.
Did it all by yourself.
God, on that positive note.
On that great note, Paul, how can people find out about the Pauls?
Well, if you want to just sling some Paul-style praise our way, then get on Twitter, get on the Facebook. It's OGT Pod. You can send an email at ogtpod@gmail.com. That's .com, Paul. Yeah. If you want to subscribe and do so on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Podbean, on YouTube, you can do it on all the things, baby. Just
get
do
on
whatever
there.
Feels good. Yeah, just get on it.
Any way you want.
Swivel right down on it.
And let us know.
Oh, yeah.
Let us know if you watch any of these things. Like, what you think of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, get back to us with
that would be great.
Our success rate.
Yeah. Or if you've seen them and you agree or disagree, just let us know. Let us know how big a pair of feckless twats we really are.
We need to know.
Oh.
How else will we know if you don't tell us?
Our mothers, they won't tell us. No matter how hard we press. We haven't asked each other's mothers yet, though. I think we've got a much better chance. Yeah.
What do you think of other Paul? You mean my son, other Paul?
Please don't call me that. So, with all of that, thanks everyone.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm Paul Salt.
Really. I'm Paul Goodman.
And remember, another thing you might have missed is another slew of really excellent films that you should watch. But don't get overwhelmed. You'll be fine.
It's too late.